Alright, we are back. Last time we went through the swamp and got some blacksmith materials. Now we are going to head... Actually, I don't think I've decided which way we should head. I know I gotta go out this river here. I think where I really want to go is Aqua Rock. I think that might be my favorite one of these rock dungeons. The four: Ares Rock, Aqua Rock, Gaia Rock, I think that one's called, and then Magma Rock is like the one you have to do last. Right now we could go to Gaia Rock, I think it's called, or Aqua Rock, but I really like Aqua Rock. Am I going the right way, or we're going to go up further? So this is kind of a, I guess, a dull part of the game. I don't know. I guess from a viewer perspective, I think this is kind of dumb. Just walking across the map, getting into random battles. But I think playing the game myself, it's not really boring because I feel like I'm traveling, like I'm on a quest to go somewhere. Now I can't go directly in there first. I need to go to the town first to really unlock it. And that's what we're going to do right here. Apogee Islands. And there's a bunch of stuff you could do here. You could use Cyclone in a bunch of spots to like clear out these little the brush on the ground, and you can sometimes find items underneath. It'd be really good if I could find an example. Let's see, is there something in here? No. Guess I'm imagining things. But I'm not gonna waste your guys' time by doing that with everything. I shouldn't even be checking these jars. I'm just trying to find an example. Oh, there we go. See, an herb. It's not even something really that big a deal. So this is the Aqua Rock thingy here. We are going to activate by using Douse on it. Now, how do I know that? I don't know. Maybe if I talk to locals, I would know something about it. I think what I really like about Aqua Rock is I just like the music. It's very chill. And I'm sure that's intentional. Yeah, so that's the entrance there. We wouldn't have been able to get past those statue heads. It looks like one's like about to fall over. That rock couldn't have heard my wishes. That's impossible. It's got to be. Well, okay then. Maybe we should try putting some more of our wishes into the rock. If there's nothing on Aqua Island, then what are those moe guarding anyway? Moe? Well, I'm probably saying that completely wrong. Let me know. Somebody knows in the comments, let me know how to pronounce that. Moe, I think. I guess I'm pretty sure it's referring to like those statue head things. Let's see. If we go down here, I think there's something. A mint. Yeah, this is good. This is worth my time because it's like a stat boosting item, you know? I think Felix usually has the lowest agility. So I'm going to give that to him. Help him out a bit. Also, there is some stuff to get around here, but we can't get it yet. I don't think. Can we? Yeah, there's a gin. Do I even remember how to get that? Use lash from the other side. I don't know if I remember how to get that. There's some bramble seeds. Am I supposed to jump down from somewhere? It's like a hidden cave. Oh, it's a town. There should be like a hidden cave somewhere, right? That's kind of my prevailing theory, that every town has and should have a cave, secret cave. Oh, over there. That's the ticket. Gotta cross the screen here, I think. Oh, yeah. It is something we cannot do yet, but it is something that we will need to come back for. So hopefully I don't forget. With the time I spend in between recording sessions, I I can easily forget, you know, what we did last, what we didn't do. But we can go into Aqua Rock now. Just gotta travel around the outside here. I did have a talking point I want to bring up this episode. It's gonna be coming out. This video is coming out like long after the fact, but Masahiro Sakurai, his YouTube channel, he came out with a video on the essence of RPGs, and in it he talks about 2 of the essences. He doesn't say this strictly is what RPGs are, but it does apply, I think, to a lot of RPGs. He said that the 2 of the essences of RPGs are dungeon diving. Basically what that means is there's like a risk-reward factor on how far into the dungeon do you go before you turn back. And he uses Final Fantasy 1 in his example, and I totally agree that Final Fantasy 1 has that vibe to it. That, like, you can keep going, but you should probably turn back and go heal, and then come back again. Because those old RPGs are definitely all about, like, the battle of attrition. And I think I've discussed this in a previous episode, too, during the first Golden Sun Games run. Pretty sure I mentioned this topic of, like, what is an RPG, and, like, I don't like the war of attrition kind of thing. But he said that one of the essences of an RPG is the dungeon diving. Because the further you go, you get more treasure, but if you die, then you lose it all. That's the risk-reward factor of it. The second thing he said is combat. And he uses a boss fight as an example because random encounters are, as I would say, are pretty dull and boring in most RPGs. But he brings up a boss battle. It's the first, like, it's the Earth Lich. It's like the first real major boss in the game. Do I have my shortcuts set? I do. And it's a good example because he brings up the fact, like, hey, you gotta pay attention to what the boss's moves are. You can look at a boss and kind of think, oh, I bet he's weak to this. And if you're right, then you feel good about yourself, like you're understanding the game because you can read enemy types without, like, just seeing the enemy for the first time. And I guess, in my mind, something like that is kind of like a solvable puzzle thing. I guess because it's too easily solved by following a guide. Like, oh, this enemy is weak to this, you should just use this move. And if enemy attacks are completely random, then it kind of means there could be a battle you literally cannot win no matter what you do, just because the enemy is going to do these certain combination of attacks in this order, and there's nothing you're going to be able to do to counter it. But it also means that if the enemy did do the same moves in the same order every time, then a strategy could be written out in a player's guide or something online that's like, do these moves in this order and you'll win no matter what, you know? So there needs to be some variance in what a boss does, I think, or just even any enemy. Again, random encounters in most RPGs are dumb because you just, you know, like this, you just mash attack and you win. You don't have to think about what the enemies are weak to at all. You just kill them all. There's no thinking about that. I guess the dungeon diving was still an interesting aspect, but definitely something more suitable to older RPGs. He even mentions RPGs that allow you to leave the dungeon whenever you want, such as like Pokemon Escape Ropes, or even this Golden Sun game. It has the return synergy, lets you return to the entrance of a dungeon. He thinks, or he says, those types of RPGs that have these things could be thought of as more casual, friendly, or something like that. And I mean, I guess because it's kind of like a get out of jail free card. Like if you went too far into the dungeon, you don't have enough supplies to make your way out, then yeah, that kind of instantly go back to the entrance is kind of like a cheat. But at the same time, he also says, to make up for that, instead of the game being a war of attrition kind of thing, make all the battles more intense, you know? So it's not about how long can you survive per se, but it's really more about you keep going until you get to one battle that like really kills you, and then you just gotta leave. You gotta get out of there because you messed up in one battle, because each battle is a little more intense. And of course he said all of this in like a 5-minute video, and I'm just explaining it more in what I think of it. I hope I'm going the right way here. I fear I'm supposed to go left first, but I'm going right first instead. But I guess we'll see if I chose right or not. Actually, did I choose right? I'm gonna have to go back now because I want to get that treasure chest. I don't know if it's worth it or not. I don't know what's in it. I just know I don't want to leave anything behind. So, as far as Final Fantasy 1 was his example game, and he brings up, for like the casual stuff, he brings up like Bravely Default as a game I think you can... an elixir, that is totally not worth it. Yeah, Bravely Default, I think he said, I think that was his example game for you can leave the dungeon whenever you want. And the Golden Sun games definitely don't have the vibe of dungeon diving, in the sense like this is an unexplored area with deadly monsters around every turn, and you're just going to venture as far as you can, and as you get worn down, you're just going to have to leave and rest and come back and try again. That is not the way this, or any like modern RPG, I think, really goes. In fact, I think that's more akin to roguelikes. Roguelikes still have that kind of feeling, even though... Yeah, even though those games are really more about you're just going to keep going forward until you die. I guess the permanence kind of feeling, even though it's not really a big deal when you die in roguelike, because you're expected to die. And you're supposed to get like some kind of benefit to starting over. Something you got in the dungeon. You do lose some stuff, but not everything, is what I think the essence of like a roguelike is what is really about. But I'm getting off topic, because I mean there's other stuff about roguelikes, about like being at random. And I think that actually, you know what, let's talk about roguelikes, because I think roguelikes are better off as dungeon divers, because the random dungeon nature makes it more worth like leaving and coming back. I really should play something like what's that digging game with the robots called? That one, I've got it. I haven't played it, but I have it. Steamroll Dig, that's what it's called. Because that's kind of that is literally like a dungeon diving thing. I don't think it's randomized. But it's a game where, you know, you go down as far as you can. When you have to go back, you have to go back. But I think that one might be more about carrying capacity rather than you're getting weak, you know? But yeah, that I don't think... Obviously, Final Fantasy 1, again, like he used in his example, is a perfect example of dungeon diving, because... Yeah, the first time playing that game definitely was like, for me, I had to like go in to a dungeon, get lost. The random encounter rate is super high in old games too, so, you know, the act of exploring takes a lot out of you, where once you know where you're going, suddenly the act of exploring is... the danger is minimized, because it's like, oh, I know I need to go this way, and there's a thing over here. I don't want to go down that way because there's nothing there. Yeah, so I guess dungeon diving can be an aspect of an RPG. I mean, every RPG's got like areas where you go and fight monsters. So, like, the definition of a dungeon could be sometimes loose. It's just... I don't think it's necessarily... The act of dungeon diving isn't really the same in every RPG, for sure. Combat also, I mean, isn't the same, but it's pretty prevalent in every RPG. You know what? I think his two examples of Essence being dungeons and combat. I mean, he specifically said it was like kind of like dungeon exploring, dungeon diving kind of thing. Because otherwise, dungeons are just levels. It's I think he pretty much said like the act of having to risk going deeper into the dungeon was part of what makes an RPG. And if you think of every RPG being originated from Dungeons and Dragons, and you've played Dungeons and Dragons, then you can totally see how RPGs, JRPGs were inspired by that kind of thing. And I don't know if Western RPG, I haven't really played any real Western RPGs, so I don't know if dungeon diving is a real big thing in those games. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. Are you expected to clear a dungeon the first time you go through it? If so, then dungeon diving isn't really a thing. Because there's no risk-reward of how far do I go before I turn back. That's what I think, anyway. So, I guess back to Golden Sun here. That was a weird thing we just did. We just kind of did some trickery with... We did some weird water magic stuff, which caused us to create a portal that brought us down here. Now, Ayers Rock, the first time, the outside was really long. And we've just cleared the outside of Aqua Rock. Maybe... Oh, I almost grabbed that. I don't want to. Maybe, I'm thinking, Ayers Rock is actually longer than the other ones? And I really like Aqua Rock, and maybe it's just me knowing where things are. No, there was that one section in Ayers Rock that was really long and really backtracking and stuff. Oops, I gotta be careful not to get blown away by the wind here. Another thing, maybe this is another topic for another video, but so I listen to the Player One podcast. It's pretty good. It's by these older guys who used to work at video game magazines together, and they're all like defunct now, but they just do a podcast talking about video games. And one of the guys on there talks about how he used to be like the RPG guy when he was working at the magazine, and like if there was an RPG that came in, he would be the one that it would most likely go to first. But nowadays he says he doesn't have time for RPGs, and I do admit a lot of RPGs tend to be longer games. But I think I tried to start a question conversation on their Discord server about, you know, people saying that they don't have time for RPGs. I don't believe it, because like even them, those guys on the show, they've spent over 100 hours on certain games already. But they don't think they can spend half that time on a single RPG game. And there was another comment. I guess we'll just go ahead and go into it. There was another comment that said they would rather play 25-hour games, like a 5-hour game, 20 different 5-hour games, rather than one 100-hour game, because those would be like the same amount of times. And I can agree with that to an extent. Basically, what it really comes down to is how good are each of the individual games. Because recently, speaking from my own experience, recently I've bought a bunch of games on Steam because they were cheap. And because they were cheap, as I play them, I find out they're also cheap experiences. And then when I go and get like a AAA game, you know, of course it depends completely on the AAA game. Not all... The price of a game does not necessarily reflect its quality. But there are like bigger games that cost more. Those are more fulfilling to me, just because it's like it's a deeper game. There's more to it. It's not something you're going to be done with in like a weekend. I find those sometimes more enjoyable. I mean, Golden Sun, for example, it's not something you're going to beat in a weekend, and I think that's more valuable for being longer that way. Basically, I do think that there is, like, at least a minimum amount of time that makes a game better for having more content. Because if you... So here's a couple examples. Star Fox Zero is a game that is too short. Because a lot of reviews at the time even said, like, it takes a while to get used to the controls. The controls have a steep learning curve. And since they have that learning curve, you're done with the game by the time you just start really getting it. So if the game was longer, then it would be worth learning the hard controls. But because the game is so short, it's kind of a bad experience. Therefore, you know, short games aren't better games. And that was also like an expensive game, so definitely was like a double burn in that sense. Where if it was like a $20 game, you know, maybe people would have thought of it as a $20 experience and wouldn't have been as harsh on it. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation about how price affects game reviews, even though it really shouldn't, but it still does for anybody who, you know, actually has to buy their games. Where, I mean, even if you don't have to buy your games, you know, there's a temptation to be easier on a game if you get it for free. Anyway, I'm rambling on to other topics now, but let's stick to the time thing. And again, this video is coming out way after the fact of when it happened. In fact, it's already been a week since that podcast. I even listened to that podcast like a week late, and now I'm talking about it a couple weeks late, and this video is going to come out even later. So anyway, I'd be curious to know what other people's thoughts are on RPGs. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you probably like RPGs. I don't think you came here necessarily for my personality. Oh no, I screwed up this puzzle. I gotta leave and reset it. I need to go down here first. But a good example of an RPG, in fact, two great examples of RPGs are on the Super Nintendo. And I'm not talking about Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy IV. I'm talking about Chrono Trigger and Super Mario RPG. Both, again, made by Square at the time and Square Enix now. Those are short games. Both, you can beat Chrono Trigger the first time in 20 hours. Easily. And then going for everything else, like going for all the endings, that may double your time, maybe an extra 50%, I think. Because going through the game a second time is really easier because of the New Game Plus feature. And Super Mario RPG is already just an easy game. Like, there's no grinding. I think that is good for the genre, that there should be no grinding. Someone's about to die here. Let me go ahead and quick heal and protect myself. So yeah, Chrono Trigger and Mario RPG, those two are some of like the best in the genre, simply because they have the right level of difficulty. There's no grinding. There's plenty of optional things to do. There is a video by, I think it was Rasputin on YouTube. He talks about optional content and like the value of optional content. Basically, he talks about a game where there was an important section that was optional because you technically see the credits before you can even attempt it. I think it was like a fighting game about like how the story is different, like beating it again. But anyway, the point is, if it's mandatory, you know, everybody experiences it. If it's not mandatory, then you have some kind of innate special feeling about having done something that maybe most people don't do. I need to move a pillar down there. And so I think there is some truth in his video that having optional content is of great value to a game. I think it should be part of reviews. In fact, that's a whole nother topic we should get into in another video. In fact, let me write that down real quick. Where do I have my list? Okay, so I got another topic I want to do: crafting systems, review scores. I want to talk about those. In fact, I probably should have done this one, because it has to do with my playing card reviews and how I've stopped using review scores on those. I want to talk about why. But what else was I saying? I mean, the optional content I've pretty much covered. You can see Rasputin's video. He's got a pretty good explanation of the value of optional content. I'm pretty sure it's Rasputin. Let me know if I'm wrong about that, and I can... And please correct me if just please correct me. Let me know if I'm thinking of the wrong video. But what prompted the question on the Player One podcast about RPGs was someone just tweeted and asked them, "Are RPGs good?" And they're all like, "Yeah." Even though they don't play them, I think maybe they said they're not for them, but I think mostly they said they don't have time for them, and I don't believe that. I believe the real answer is they're not interested in them. Not that they don't have time, but they're actually not interested in them. And I say that because they talk about it all the time. They've got a bunch of games that they have and never play. Like, what's the difference between that and buying an RPG that you never play? But they specifically choose RPGs to not buy when they buy these other games that they don't play. And it's not because they don't play those other games because they don't... I mean, to say they don't have time would be not completely correct. Basically, they don't have time to play a lot of games. It's not RPGs specifically. And I think the real reason they don't buy RPGs is because they don't like them. And I think that has to do a lot with the genre being poorly paced. Most RPGs have a lot of random battles, wandering in dungeons that don't go anywhere. Like, there's too long of a wait between story beats, stuff like that. So I think the genre does need to be improved. Oh yeah, too many systems. That's something else that is in, I think, a lot of modern RPGs. I mean, Golden Sun is, I don't know, it's not super old, but it's not super new either. I mean, it's over 20 years old almost. I mean, the first Golden Sun is, I think it's like 20 years old now. But like super old RPGs that are 40 years old now, like the original Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy that were made in the 80s. Okay, maybe they're not completely 40 years old yet, but they're getting close. I can't do this yet. I gotta get the dungeon. I gotta get this dungeon synergy before I can get that water gin. I should probably be using some more synergy to get through these battles faster. Oh, well, maybe it's working. Never mind. I didn't need to use any synergy. If I haven't completed any of my thoughts, let me know in the comments below. I can bring it back up in another video. But let me know what you think of RPGs. Do they need to be changed? Are there RPGs that change? I think the Mario RPG series, I mean, the original Mario RPG and the first two Paper Marios, which, you know, have combat, like Sakurai mentioned. Am I going in circles? Maybe I need to be paying more attention to the game I'm playing. I don't think I'm going in circles. I might be. Those games, you know, they've got their typical RPG combat. Do I need to go back up this way? There's something to this. I need to get something for that. Yeah, I definitely need to focus more on the game I'm playing. I think this is a path I haven't taken before. Yes it is. So yeah, I mean, I've contemplated myself just trying to come up with a prototype in RPG Maker of what I think an RPG should be structured like. Basically, taking out random battles, making every battle important. In fact, speaking of random battles, I think some RPGs have gotten too much credit for having enemies on screen saying, oh, you can avoid random battles this way. Like, instead of having random battles, they have enemies on screen. Chrono Trigger is in fact, Chrono Trigger and Mario RPG are prime examples of this. Mario RPG, I think, does this better because I think there actually are a good number of enemies that you can skip. In Chrono Trigger, specifically, there's actually a lot of battles that you can't skip. In fact, I would say that there's more battles that you can't skip than there are battles you can skip. Chrono Trigger is interesting because its dungeons are pretty linear, but the overworld exploration is more so non-linear. Well, I think actually the game is pretty linear overall. I mean, it's not strictly linear, like go here next, do this, go through this narrow corridor of a dungeon thing. It's better than that. The dungeon design is pretty good in the game, but it's still pretty linear for being a game that's... I mean, it's pretty open towards the end of the game when you get like your airship, you know, typical Final Fantasy style. But for the most part, you kind of do have a lot of... you can only go to these kind of places kind of structure. In fact, I'm playing through it on my own on PC now, and I'm kind of still disappointed. Like, there have been a lot of improvement patches made to the Chrono Trigger on PC, but I'm still kind of disappointed since playing the DS version that there's just like options that aren't there yet, or still not there and probably will never be there. Like even in the original Chrono Trigger and in the DS version, which, I mean, I think the DS version is the best version, but in the original Chrono Trigger, up through, except for the PC version, you could change the text background color. I mean, it's not like a specific color selection thing you can use. There was like several different pre-made backgrounds you could put for the text boxes, but you just have to stick with the default gray in the PC version. Like, it's the only option. I think there are some mods that allow you to use the blue background, but that's still not all the backgrounds that were available. I mean, there was a red one that I like to use. I mean, I think I'm expecting there to be more things that disappoint me about the PC version. In fact, back when I listened to the Resonant Arc podcast, I mean, I've listened to a couple of their game analysis. Like, I listened to all the Final Fantasy X analysis. But the main guy on there, Mike, I'm pretty sure he said Chrono Trigger on PC is now his preferred way of playing the game. I mean, maybe. It's not a very strong recommendation. I don't think it should be anyway. I think the DS version is the best way. I mean, of course, the DS may not be accessible to most people now. And perhaps the PC version is better than playing like a PlayStation 1 emulated version. Just because, I mean, the PC version does have like widescreen support and stuff. And they've taken off like the mandatory modern smoothing filters that they had on it at release. Like, you can turn those off now. So it's definitely pretty good, but it's still not the best version, I don't think. So wow, that has been a large detour let's talk more about this dungeon and why I like it. So, I really do like the music. The music is very chill. Of course, you know that's the joke. It's a water dungeon. The water puzzles here are pretty reasonable. It's nothing as crazy as like a Zelda water dungeon or anything. In fact, this is probably the most taxing puzzle in the game, or in this dungeon, and it's not even that big a deal. I just gotta move these pillars in a way that they connect and make a path that I can walk across to reach up here. And you know, Golden Sun's puzzles, they're not really super difficult most of the time. Every once in a while they've got a little puzzle you gotta think about for a while, but nothing really stumps you, I don't think, in these games. I mean, maybe I'm just speaking from the fact that I've beaten these games multiple times. I'm surprised I haven't put Douse on a shortcut yet. But I don't think the puzzles are really difficult enough to warrant like getting stuck needing to look up a guide. And I think that's the right difficulty. It should be hard enough that you have to think about it, but not so hard that you would give up and resort to a guide too quickly. Okay, now we're getting into where we need to be. Wow, this episode is going a little long, but I think I'm going to have to keep it that way because of the conversation I've basically had here. It's kind of all a single train of thought I want to keep together. But this definitely is going to get done faster than Ayers Rock. Ayers Rock is just... It might just be the longest one. We had to break that up into 2 episodes for sure. Well, I mean, 2 20-minute episodes maybe. This one, I don't think we're going to get done before we get to 40 minutes, so maybe I should have broken this one up? But that's also a question for you, the viewers. Do you guys, like, what's your preferred length of episode? I try to do 20 minutes. I think that's a good length from my own experience. When I watch YouTube videos on my lunch breaks, I usually prefer the 20-minute ones because it's like I can watch this and still have time to watch something else before my lunch break is over. Where if I'm going to watch like a 30-minute one or longer, it's like I should be prepared for this to be the only thing I watch during my lunch break, you know? So I like being able to have, I guess, the variety of watching multiple things in a shorter amount of time. Let's, if it's going to be a long battle, I should kindle. Hopefully, maybe I can put him to sleep. Oh, dang. Felix didn't get his healing gen off. That sucks. Let's go ahead and start summoning. I don't think he's going to be... I guess Felix needs that more. Ooh, Jen's going to need the next one. Oh, is he weak to... No, I don't know if he's weak to fire or wind. Maybe... Well, I don't know. Can she summon something? Moloch. Sure, why not? Ooh, side drain? That's just annoying. Because I'm definitely going to get that back from walking around. Oh, there we go. What do I get? I get a potion. Not exactly the stat boosting item I hoped it would be, but potion is still a good item. I really shouldn't be wasting my time with item management right now. I mean, we are kind of running up on the clock right now. Oh yeah, let's go ahead and reset all those. I'm not going to touch that synergy crystal, because I'm just challenging myself to not use any kind of free healing supplies. I feel like we're almost done. But you know what? I really shouldn't be more than 40 minutes long. So this, I think, is a good start point. I've kind of finished my ranting, or I don't know if you want to call it conversation topics. Let me know if you have anything to add to what I said in the comments below. We will finish this dungeon next time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.